I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Dietrich. Jordan Rodelli is on holiday. Andrew Kuo, however, does not take days off, even during the Yuletide season. How was your Christmas week, Andrew Kuo?
Happy stimulus season, everybody. I am fully stimulated by our government, by the worship of cut down trees inside of houses, and buying presents for people.
You sound festive today.
I love Christmas, man. This is no secret. The streets are saying I really enjoy Christmas. Christmas is different this year.
I've heard whispers about you as being a Christmas guy for years, and this is the first time I think you've come clean on your love of Yule.
Yeah. There's rumors that I was in the Christmas club. There was some pictures circulating of me in the Christmas club, and it may be confirmed that I was actually in there maybe as recently as last night.
Yeah, your public persona is more Grinch-like.
It is. I'm doing the Grinch bit constantly as a life choice. No kink shaming.
Is this a bit?
Is this a bit?
Did you come down from your weird mountain cave to steal all of our gifts from Whoville?
I thought you were going to say Gabagool. Did you come down from your ivory tower to steal our Gabagool? It's like me running off with a bunch of cold cuts.
What happened to the mortadelle?
Where did the prosciutto go?
It's fucking Grinch.
Some smoked turkey.
Can you believe this fucking Grinch?
I worked my ass off all day and there's no smoked turkey. Did you buy smoked turkey for any of your loved ones this year?
No, I got some smoked fish.
This is okay. This is a Ben Dietrich tradition because
no other.
You are the smoked fish whisperer because you had the privilege, the honor of living near Acme Fish.
Mm-hmm. I do have access to the smoked fish factory, and I take advantage of that access.
I know you do. I've been a recipient of this access.
I'm hesitant to even get this information out there, but I do respect, the gentlemen and gentlewomen over at the Acme Fish Factory. So they do what they call Fish Fridays, and they sell at wholesale prices. Their smoked salmon, their gravlax, their pastrami lox, smoked trout, smoked whitefish dip, whatever they sell normally.
Just a dip?
You would find it just a dip. You'd find it in Whole Foods. You'd find it at Russ and Daughters.
Yep.
Same stuff. But they sell it to you at wholesale prices, which is basically 50% off. But only Fridays.
Can we get your traditional New York City Jewish delicacy big board?
I just go to the factory, man. I cut the plug out.
Okay, let me simplify the question. Whitefish salad or gravlax? What are you going to first?
I love whitefish salad.
Hells yeah.
I think it's fantastic.
This may be a little gross, but the Acme whitefish salad is a bit bony sometimes. Do you ever find that?
You get a couple little shards in there at times.
Yeah.
A little Chardonnay, I like to call it.
At Kozar's, the Bialy spot in the Lower East Side, their whitefish salad is very delicious.
Does it have enough shards?
Is it shard friendly enough for Paul Pierce? Did you shard the bed?
James Chardon? But I like the pastrami quite a bit. It's like a smoked flavor on the lox.
I think it's too much, man. I hear you, but
It can be.
The medley of spices also has a textural issue for me, but gets in the way of the oily fish, in my opinion.
All great points. Just great points.
I love Jewish food so much. It's crazy.
I mean,
matzo ball soup, pastrami.
We had Frankel's, which is has been back open for a while, I believe. They were in the Cookies Hoops Classic tournament. Their team did okay. They were a solid squad. Respect to them.
They wanted it as much as anybody.
Yeah, local bagel purveyors. I believe their products may come from Acme as well.
I know they make their pastrami. This is actually, I cannot divulge this information. It's on the low, Ben. But
maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I should keep all this stuff a trade secret.
Can I ask you a dining question? You're sitting down at a beautiful Jewish restaurant, let's say Russ and Daughters, the sit-down spot, and you order the bagel spread. And usually it comes on a plank, right? And it's a couple bagels, maybe on like a dowel, and all the fixins that go into a bagel, like onions, capers, tomatoes, cream cheese, you name it. Obviously the fish. I have an issue with this setup because my stomach is not big enough to take down more than one of these things. Why the spread if I can only do one combination? Do you tear the bagel apart and like mix and match?
Wow, so you've revisited your every sandwich is too big, but you've repackaged it for our listeners now in bagel format.
It's a different dilemma. It's the one option.
Is it a different dilemma?
Because if you tear it apart, it's no longer a sandwich.
A bagel is too big.
So my thing is, when you get a delicious New York classic bagel, and New York is going to be a theme of this pod, and it's like the classic.
What a town.
Which is the red onions, the lox, the cream cheese, and the capers and tomato, right? That's the classic combination.
What about a little sprig of dill? A little
it's a bit too
lemon
much.
Juice?
You do the lemon juice. I think it's too much acid. But I respect the lemon juice. It's just not for me. I do not. You know how everyone says it needs more acid? I don't think it ever needs more acid. I think acid is a flavor, and it should be a choice. It should be a sour sandwich at that point. Isn't that weird?
I'm just glad you respect my decision to use a lemon. But capers, you're also getting a little that same vinegary pickled sensation anyway.
It's the sensation I'm looking for sure.
Sensationalist, Andrew Quo.
So what do? You have this platter. Do you make a sandwich, or do you make it into like kind of a crudo thing?
I typically like building the whole bagel apparatus, floor by important floor. But then it inevitably kind of falls apart. Really hard to keep the structural integrity intact for the eating of a whole bagel that you can't really even get your mouth around.
Oh, no. I'm a Cynthia Nixon guy. I love the toasted cinnamon raisin. What can I say?
I'm not even going to shame you. We've gone over this many times.
There is no kink shaming.
I'm not going to try to shame you because you cannot be shamed on this. I've tried so many times, and you are unrepentant.
Oh, I like it. I like the sweet, delicious cinnamon raisin bagel. Hey, if it was not to be meant to be eaten, they wouldn't offer it as an option.
Here it is, Christmas, and you've taken our show down a different religious route. Respect.
I love the food.
Christmas doesn't quite have the typical cheer in New York this week. It's not completely gone, but walking around, it doesn't have that Christmas in New York vibe that we've become accustomed to.
The fatigue is set in. I think everyone is officially traumatized, and we were for months, but like it feels finally as if we have like nothing left. The will to live has been defunded.
What do you think about a will to win?
If we just have to increase our effort on defense.
I mean, I will say this. Getting the blizzard and the restaurants shut down in like a 2-day span really was a gut punch. It's like indoor dining's done and there's a blizzard. And we're like, oof, oh, ooh, city is destroyed. But now that the sun's back out, the snow has started to melt. Okay. We're all right. We can survive this. No big deal. It was just a temporary setback there. It was in our civic feelings momentarily. We are good to go. But, yeah, there isn't that bustle. The city is already extraordinarily empty to begin with, plus additionally empty because of Christmas. And it's cold. There's not stuff going on. No Christmas parties. Like, gala season. Excuse me?
At least we're not hungover.
How did you deal with your lack of galas?
Very well. Stayed up late. I'm on the last season of The Sopranos. I finally got HBO Max on my Roku, so I'm devouring that like a stat hog, like Anthony Davis. And yeah, it's kind of the post holiday depression is going to hit hard this year. You know, on January 5th, everyone's just like, ooh.
See, I think it might not because the holiday is so subdued.
Maybe
I think we got
peak.
that on the solstice, like winter day ones.
Yeah, I was walking around trying to see if I can buy any gifts for people, and I go into tchotchke shops. I love tchotchkes, and I never saw a handmade cup that I didn't like or bowl. I'm a fiend for handmade bowls, and I was chatting up some local store owners, and they put on a good face, but it sucks out there, man. I'm like, will you be having hours, like right up until the minute? They're like, we might never close. Like, if you want to come in and buy anything, we will be here. And I'm like, I hear you. I'll buy something for sure.
We will just be your personal tchotchke shop, like around the clock. Tchotchkes on call.
They have a plastic baguette that lights up like a lamp. That is awesome, but I cannot figure out the right person to get it for. You have French relatives.
They do love tchotchkes, and they love baguettes that light up. Are they night lights?
Yeah, kind of. You light the whole thing and it glows with various intensities.
That is nice.
Yeah, it's very pleasant.
Yeah,
And
I handled most of my shopping. I just bought some books to distribute.
What books?
I can't divulge.
Are they
that
websites on paper?
They certainly aren't for reading.
So you're telling me they're hot takes, but printed out on paper?
I think it's just another way of reformatting tweets or maybe trees. Something like that. I don't know. You can kind of open them, and there's photos and some sort of scrawl inside that you would never want to inspect too closely because it might start forming into words.
Martin Scrawley. Are we ready to talk? Is that bait? Are you baiting me into a Scrawley talk?
I thought you wanted to talk stimulus because you were excited for your $600, your $2,000. Like, how much cash is coming into the Quo coffers?
Just incredible riches coming into my mailbox that's going to incentivize me to work less, to drink more, and to party like James Harden.
We are just a bunch of stimulated dummies.
So Trump tried his little checkers move the other night. It's like, nah, I want to give you more money. I'm the guy who gives you more money. It's Pelosi's fault. And Pelosi was like, oh, that was my original number. Cool, we're good. Mitch McConnell, what's your move? Like, this is so dumb. This is such checkers, man.
It's like, ooh, they're getting us with their bad cop routine.
No.
How about we give you crap? We'll give you slightly more crap. So will we. You're like, this is just all lame, man. You know how Japan gave everyone 100% of their wages? You know how Spain, the Kingdom of Aragon, is giving like significant rent decreases to restaurants and bars in order to help them survive? Spain?
Yeah.
Like, they haven't been relevant since the Armada.
I mean, it's very, very frustrating as they argue about this. And finally, there's some urgency, so I'm happy about that. $600 is $600. I think everyone should take it. If you don't need it, donate it, whatever. Andrew Yang, rest in peace, campaign. But, like, I did not just kill Andrew Yang, his campaign. Rest in peace,
You've now
his campaign.
killed Danny Ainge and Andrew Yang on this podcast. And honestly, I think the world's a better place.
Nice.
But yeah, the government's just like, they just keep, like, they've beaten us. They've they've stomped all over our heads, and now they just keep spiking the football on us and doing the icky shuffle above us and pointing and laughing like, you want $600? Like, you guys won. You delivered one of the most incredible fuck yous to a beleaguered population in world history. Just a vicious dunking upon by the U.S. government over its own people. Just month after month after month of yamming on our heads, and they just keep Sean Kemp pointing at us. It's wild. It's the most brutal monster dunk tomahawk on a population. It's incredible. We're just eating shit over and over and over.
And like, I'm a broken record, but opting out of arguing with people who believe in masks, who believe in, the Second Amendment, who believe in free speech, I'm just like, okay, these discussions are boring because our lives are being shifted by actual huge decisions, and this is all a distraction. Like,
yeah, I've seen some of my friends getting really annoyed at people who are traveling for the holidays, people getting on planes. I just don't have the energy for those kind of debates.
Take care, be safe.
I understand, exactly. I understand the frustration, and I understand that there are class lines at play, and
there's a discussion there for sure.
Of course, and what are your options? And people who feel stuck, and I get it, and I sympathize with that, and they're not wrong, but I am just out of the whole. James Harden went to a strip club. I just don't care. I just don't care what individuals do unless those individuals have institutional power. I'm over being mad at regular people.
Yep.
No, I don't care what you do. Like, please don't throw a massive super spreader party inside. Like, that would be cool if you avoided doing that. But,
right, because I don't want you to get sick. Right, yeah.
But yes, I'm not saying, cool, just disobey all laws and disobey all guidance and just live your life. I'm not saying that. I'm just not here for being mad at people for abiding by what our government has said is okay. Yeah. I'm taking that up with the government.
Yeah. I mean, James Harden violated his jobs policy, but he is allowed to be at a club and allowed to get on a plane because all those things are available for him to do.
Exactly. That's so irresponsible. Well, you know what? Again, take it up with the states that are allowing clubs to be open. Florida, they're allowing them to be open. Las Vegas, they're allowing them to be open. Take it up with them.
Mm-hmm. It's just, yeah.
He's just one beard.
Isaiah Thomas is terrible. Phil Jackson, I'm like, look up. Just keep on looking up. It's property tax policy. It's how James Dolan makes his profits. It's just like, stop getting on the failures of like Frank Ntilikina.
Yeah, and just keep your eye on the ball. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree, and it's very, very frustrating because at that point it's hard to pinpoint your anger and frustration because the more you look up, the more abstract these thoughts get. And it's just like, oh, they're arguing about like theoretical policy. And so it's really hard for me to be like, it's your fault. I mean, I know whose fault it is, but like, it's hard to be mad at somebody when you're watching Congress talk about like, are Americans lazy by nature or are we making them lazy? I'm like, you guys are fucking jerks, man. It's like,
right. And I understand the inclination to be frustrated with what is around you, to be annoyed at the people who are in your community and who are your friends because you at least have the semblance of control over them and that your irritation and your shame can modify their behavior. I get it. There's a proximity to influence and kind of what you can control that is very seductive. But again, after 9 months of this, I don't give a fuck if people are hanging out in the park. Don't care if they're going to the beach. Just don't mind. I am annoyed at the people who are making decisions. That can be on a state-by-state basis, on a city-by-city basis, on a global basis, on a national basis. But those are the people that I'm going to aim my disdain and fury at.
Yep, I agree.
Them and Tobias Harris.
Net zero. What did
Just kidding.
What did zero ever do to you?
Just kidding. I'm not mad at him at all.
Not mad, not happy, just like in the middle.
I'm just even keeled.
One of our buddies, Cookie Soup's Classics legend, Williamsburg Pizza, had a funny tweet. They said, "We will honor your $600 stimulus check with a pizza every week for a full year." And I thought that was really great because it's a value. The pizzas kind of run between $18 and $21, plain cheese pizza. So you're kind of making money on that deal.
It's a lot like the Cookies Patreon.
Yeah, you're making cash.
You know, if you were out of gift ideas, one that I've just realized is a phenomenal one. That $50 a year for a full year of Cookies Hoops. I mean, we're talking about
drops.
You know,
takes.
6 to 8 pods a month. We're talking about
just incredible
early
value.
access to hats.
Wow.
Like the round ball rock hat. Word to John Tesh that just dropped today.
Yep.
But did drop yesterday for Patreon subscribers. So when
and
they're
one of
sold
them
out,
is just about sold out.
Anyway, just a gift idea, you know, non-denominational. You know, it might be a Christmas episode and talk exclusively about bagels. Who can say?
Guys, let your freak flags fly. Let the hat do the talking for you. The NBA on Cookies Hoops.
The NBA is back, and we're going to get to that in a little while on this, quote, basketball podcast.
Sprawling podcast.
So what you're saying is you're extremely happy with the stimulus, but you're mad at your neighbors for not wearing masks inside.
Oh, I'm furious at them for having their birthday parties. I see those no bros on those streets, on those screeks, drinking those hot toddies in the snow. How dare they?
So I wanted a little dose of that Christmas restaurant action that we can't get inside. We did it last year. We went to Frenchette. That was great Christmas.
That was awesome,
Great
man.
Christmas action.
I think we did it twice in like a month.
You demanded it be a French restaurant because in your mind, a French restaurant is more Christmassy than other kinds. Now, even though you're watching The Sopranos and you've got a belly full of gabagool, you stand by the intersection of Gallic cuisine with Christmas.
Sure. There's birds. It's goose heavy. There's nice cocktails, which I associate with a celebration, as opposed to wine. I don't know. I have these weird biases, the misconception, because also a Chinese restaurant is cool too, but it doesn't hit the same. And maybe I'm racist against myself, but like,
Are
I think
all French restaurants actually Christmas restaurants?
are all French movies Christmas movies? No, but French restaurants might be Christmas restaurants. Man.
I'm not disputing anything you're saying here. I will agree with you. There is a specific aesthetic to French restaurants that do work really nicely with the Christmas spirit.
No reverse restaurant shaming. There is a understood and true thing that like we consider French restaurants to be worthy of a Michelin star more than any other restaurant. Like we're the Mexican restaurant Michelin stars because that is the more perfect food in my opinion. But there's something really nice about a French restaurant with that traditional restaurant service. Like Balthazar is awesome in Christmas time. It is really nice to be in that room.
I mean, those kind of classic brasseries in Paris, I mean, there are many, many, many of them. And basically each one of them would be an institution here because of how they look inside and the service and exactly what you're describing. But same deal. They're just wonderful places to spend an evening with a group of friends in a way that other places just it's hard to match that French combination. And I'm not even a huge advocate of French food. Like I don't really love a bunch of vegetables that are creamed. You know, like the food I can take it or leave it.
We'll get down with some escargot though.
Oh, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I'm saying I would not put French food on my list of like go-tos that I really want.
Big board, it's like 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, sure. on the Quo Big Board, French food, is it even top 5?
Is it Tatum-esque? Is it outside the 10?
Like,
It might be Jordan-esque, maybe 6, 7, or 8.
like Obi Toppin style. Obi Tapas. But anyway, yes, French crush it. All French restaurants are actually Christmas restaurants.
True, you heard it here.
So I did go to Minetta Tavern, which is not French but has a similar vibe.
Kate McNally, right?
It's McNally, yeah. So they had a pretty good outdoor setup with, heated lights, probably 4 or 5 tables under an awning. Pretty good setup. And one thing I thought was cool was McDougal Street is one that you would pretty typically avoid.
Yeah, it's a bit of a drunk situation.
Yeah, it's a lot of college kids. It's a lot of tourists.
Yeah, you guys like comedy?
Exactly. It's comedy clubs. It's off the wagon. It's cheap beers.
Good
Mamoon's
shawarma.
falafel. It's just a very young, drunk party street. Kind of like Bleecker, but probably even younger. And
Very white.
I think that's probably true too. But
I don't know why. I said
seeing it in a subdued sort of situation made me really like it, because it's one of those rare streets that hasn't been perverted by sweet greens.
that. Perverted monks. Yeah.
Perverted by sweet greens and city banks, and it still is a bunch of kind of like head shops and falafel places and little sushi places. I don't know, it's like a cool New York City street when it's been cleared with all the people who are normally there. I was very much digging McDougal Street.
Yeah, it reeks of downtown, and in a movie like Eyes Wide Shut that wasn't filmed in New York, it looks like McDougal Street.
Yeah, that's what it is. It feels like the old West Village that I imagine around the Cage in like the late 90s with like all the record stores and all the places to buy
Kim's Underground.
pipes and bongs. It still has that kind of seediness to it.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed just kind of walking around McDougal
Where are
Street.
you going with this?
Where I'm going with this was the viral article in Elle magazine that was about a jailhouse romance between a journalist for Bloomberg named Christy Smith and beloved pharma bro Martin Shkreli, the Skrell man, Skrell dog.
The S-Dog.
That article took Twitter by storm because it was weird and humiliating, involved some reviled characters, and people are bored as fuck and have nothing else to talk about. The story really wasn't about anything. Nothing even happened. That was what was kind of remarkable. So they had to add this part of, well, she threw away her life with her husband in Brooklyn, this idyllic writer's paradise where they would go to the farmer's market and walk their, rescue dog around.
Jack Russell Terrier.
Exactly. And I think the fact that it involved media and it had Brooklyn in it and it had the Skrell guy, it really touched a lot of people's hearts in this Christmas spirit. Did you have any takeaways from that article other than the whole thing being just kind of sad?
My takeaway was like, after all the ping-ponging of people's throwing takes out there, be like, is she ill? Is she mentally ill? Has she been seduced by a charismatic cult leader? What happens when you put Skrelly in a room with someone? Is he a genius, mastermind? And I'm like, what if she just thought he was balls hot? What if she was just like, oh, he is my cup of tea? Like, that would have squashed everything, right? If she was like, I find him very irresistible. I'm like, fair enough, no kink shaming.
Yeah, there seemed to be the perception that he was this master seducer. The like silver-tongued charmer. I'm like, that guy? No one thinks he's charming at all. Everyone thinks he sucks. But that was never his persona. Was never that he was like, oh, look at this snake oil salesman. He's so good at this. It was always that he was incredibly easily hateable and was a squirrely Albanian dude. Like, he wasn't the master of the universe, Michael Milken, hedge fund scam artist. That he was like low grade, that he was outer borough striver hustler. He didn't fit into the American Psycho, like blonde guy who went to Wharton aesthetic. He was never viewed as that guy at all.
I was waiting for the part of the article where she was like, okay, he was spitting these bars as if he was in the Wu-Tang Clan. We know he has access exclusively to one of the Wu-Tang records, and it shows those bars won me over, me and my heart. Like, I don't know. It was a very fascinating article, and I'm grateful these things exist, but I don't know. I was looking for a bit more comedy out of it, and I'm glad.
Same.
Yeah, I just wanted people to joke more about it. Thankfully, the photo series, the editorial photos that went with the article were something to talk about, and people found the source of those. I love patterns, so I love big, loud patterns, so I was down for all those dresses. But our friends over at certain publications found the sources of all these things, and that was fun.
Yeah, one of the dresses, or maybe more than one, was from, is it Nick Cage's? No. Is it Nick Cage?
The actor Nick Cage?
No, with the singer. Nick
Cave?
Nick Cave, excuse me. I think it's Nick Cave's wife's brand.
That's a very good
You know where I was going with that. Yes,
Yeah.
Nick Cave. I think it's his wife's brand, but it's The Vampire's Wife is the name of the brand.
Yeah.
So that was like a nice little Easter egg for all you fashion heads out there in that photo spread in Elle magazine.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. It should have been funnier. I wanted more juxtapositions between her bland, boring, predictable Brooklyn life and like Fast Times and Murray Hill wine bars. Like Skrelly's out there ordering an Albanian. She's confused. Like she's losing her focus on reality as that Cabernet comes in. Yeah. Like Fast Times, Fast Life. Unreleased You God verses. Just like, oh my God, it was all happening. Inspector Deck texted him.
Sons of Man. Comeback album. He's doing his time for doing something dastardly or kind of, to be honest, par for the course in that industry. So he's doing his time. So I'm running out of anger for him because, like, he's being punished. But the jokes are ripe. He bought a Wu-Tang record for $1 million. He ran an emo rock label before that. Like, he is full of funny stuff. So when people were like, "Are we talking about mental illness?" I'm like, no, we're not. We're talking about bars.
I knew people that I can't remember who they were. Just like I can't remember the difference between Nicolas Cage and Nicolas Cave. But I know people who met him prior to this, and it was definitely on some like music industry, like rap shit or something.
Well, yeah, he was involved. He's a fan of the arts, and I think he ran a emo label for years, and he was part of that scene.
Does he own a Quo illustration off of Instagram, which you could buy? Another great gift. I'd be remiss not to mention them in the Cookies gift guide.
Are you allowed to buy stuff in prison and like have it delivered to your cell? Certain prisoners, right? Like, can you go on Amazon and buy yourself like a bunch of La Croix?
I think you're limited to purchasing things from the commissary, but someone could potentially bring you a painting as a gift.
Some smoked turkey, maybe a different flavor, kinds of gabagool.
A dowel covered with bagels?
And all the fixins. It's like not a sandwich. It's not a spread.
But also with him, we're so conditioned to blame the dudes in this kind of situation. And we know that he is, as you described, a dastardly character.
Yeah.
That every time he would say, I'm not interested in talking to you. I don't really want to do this interview. The response from a lot of people is, he's negging her again. It was all part of some grand plan. I'm like, he might just not really be into her that much.
Well, the story was insane because it was kind of sad, and she's like, well, he might be ghosting me currently, but I'm waiting for him to get out of jail. I'm like, oh, there's a melancholy here that is hard to imagine, hard to put yourself in that position. I'm like, oh, there's a sadness here that I wasn't ready for.
Well, right. And then when there was that reveal that when she started working on this article, he responded like, You're doing what now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What? The article about our love? Oh.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, that fucking bastard. How dare he?
Yeah. It's like she's...
Yo, the guy was going to jail.
Yeah.
He needed allies. Whether or not he was manipulative, I couldn't say. But, again, the guy had no one in his corner. Yeah. And this woman's like, hey, you know what? I'm riding for you 100%. I love you. He's like, God damn it, I love you too.
And she's like, are we dating? Are we dating? He's like, yes. I'll see you in a few years.
You're not going to the press about this or anything, are you?
I can relate to both of their positions, man. Is it, as someone who loves the Knicks, is it Stockholm Syndrome?
I viewed it as she liked the action.
She just wants the action.
He was in the action. She wanted some action. She was like, and I became part of the story. I was like, there it is. You just wanted to be part of the story. I get it. You had a thirst for action. You know where there's not action? Walking your rescue dog around Park Slope. A distinct lack of action over there. Murray Hill, though, it's different.
I would just, if you haven't read the article, I would just summarize it in 4 words. No kink shaming.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's bad in this. I'm not even defending him.
Yeah.
I'm just reading it, and I'm not interpreting it through the lines. I'm just looking at it as he just kind of seemed to not care that much about her at any point as she's there documenting how she became more and more engrossed in his affairs and defending him and then throwing away her charming Brooklyn existence. She may have been someone who wanted to tear it all down, and this was a good way of doing it.
How charming is a Brooklyn existence? Like, we do this all the time. We project onto what New York City
Sounds
is.
like someone's having some Brooklyn anxiety.
I'll be moving there eventually, and I don't want to, but it's going to happen.
How great is it really?
I'm going to get that Uber straight into Chinatown every day. But I think people, like, especially, we're talking about McDougal Street and the 90s and movies kind of like Seinfeld, the set of New York, and it's immediately recognizable or it's not. Like, Friends did not do a good job of presenting New York to us. And, there's been a lot of New Yorkisms lately with COVID being like, we're still here. I mean, we feel this. Like, I feel very strongly about our community and our people making things and not being able to make things. We are the sum of all these small things, but there is some sort of cultural grab going on where there is an easy way to talk about this that will get you a visceral response. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and I think this just switches based on generations, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you went back 20 years, it would be talking about, let's say 25 years, it would be talking about life on the Upper West Side. The New York would be defined by the Knicks, always in that way, but like Woody Allen. Like there would be the different cultural signifiers, maybe eating at Elaine's or something. And now those have sort of shifted. And now there are things like bodegas, and you've seen them go viral on Twitter. People arguing about bodegas and this mythical quality that they seem to have in people's minds. Where like, how would you get gum in another city? Like, what would you do? How would you get like a Diet Coke if you weren't going to the bodega? So there is this eagerness to celebrate parts of New York that are still here by the people who are still here. And I think there is a valuable element to civic pride in those ways. But it also does lean on cliches. And, our buddy Despot, rapper from Queens, Left Rack City, he was tweeting earlier today and he said, please stop the corny fetishization of where we're all from. You New York Nico head-ass losers. I don't want to buy your New York. And he spelled it the York, funny way. Branded fart whistles and whoopee cushions. This isn't Spencer's Gifts. You're all herbs and should move. Sorry, use is all herbs. And I think he's kind of getting at that idea that the cartoonish version of New York is one that's very identifiable now in a way that it's just the signifiers have shifted. to now being bodegas, chopped cheese,
Yeah.
and these kind of elements that now pizza rats
Yeah.
that now define New York in 2020 versus the things that defined New York in 1985.
And mythology serves us better now at a time like this than ever, right? When we're kind of at a pause. So it's almost like a logical mean to an end that's still happening. Like we're mythologizing things, and there's always going to be the idea of phonies, and it brings me back to the thought that, like, how much do I really care about authenticity? Do I care a lot, a little, some? I don't know. I think I care a little, but not that much. But I also think eulogizing or propping up a bodega is like kind of funny too, because it's real. It happened. Like there are bodegas there was a time where I used to go eat lunch and order a chicken salad sandwich on a roll at a bodega, and it doesn't exist anymore. So I'm just like, that's kind of.
I mean, I had a bacon, egg, and cheese this morning, so they talk about it while I live it.
Yeah, I mean, it is. There's so many New York changes and everything changes, but like this place has changed so much where the bodega isn't the crux of the community anymore. Like McDougal Street used to be littered with bodegas. Now, not so much. Like, and I think it's cigarettes. People stopped smoking, so the places to get cigarettes and alcohol kind of went away, and the bodega didn't die because of low demand. It died because like our trends changed. I think our buying habits changed. We stopped buying. I just think it's cigarettes, and
I also think a lot of bodegas changed the outside of them, and I want to say that there was even an initiative to do that they would tear down your old bodega fronts and put in one of those ones that's all glass with sort of embossed is the wrong word, but the illuminated block letters, like the one on Canal Street on the corner of Ludlow, like that they all look like that now, and they look terrible. But there was an initiative to create those facades instead of the traditional ones that had like the yellow overhangs that were super filthy, covered with stickers for like, reggaeton concerts on stuff. And
Beat
I think,
nuts.
Right, no, exactly, like that traditional look. And honestly, I would say the new ones look awful. Like they're so generic, and I don't see how they'll age gracefully at all.
I think, remember when Pen and Pixel was big? Master P. The design company had all the diamonds, the fisheye lenses, all that amazing looking stuff. I feel like their influence wasn't in popular culture, it was bodega signage. Because now you walk by one of these, you used to walk by, we're such old heads, but it used to be just like beautifully aligned stuff for sale. Like if you had hand soap or dish soap, they would just line up like 100 of them in the window, and it would be like bright green or pink or whatever. But now it's like these stickers on the windows with huge sandwiches and coffees and spreads of gabagool for sale. And I'm like, yo, this is some Pen and Pixel shit. This is Master P's influence visually. I don't lament the demise of the Manhattan bodega, because to your point, they still exist everywhere in Brooklyn and Queens. But I think, I don't know, stuff changes, and I don't have a problem getting those kinds of things. And there was, when I first started thinking about bodegas, there were mostly like Dominican and Puerto Rican and Mexican, and sometimes amazing tacos in the back, like the best stuff. They would make food in the back, but it was
and let's not forget the Yemenis kings. Yemeni bodegas really on point.
Yeah, and I feel like that community, as most communities do, they migrate to different parts of the city, and kind of the Bloombergization of downtown Manhattan happened, and those bodegas probably moved to Queens and got replaced by like Two Bros Pizza.
I just also think we're talking about, again, cultural signifiers that someone, who just arrived in New York can say, this is different from where I came from. And I think probably 20 years ago, that would have been yellow cabs, right? If we had Twitter back then, it would have been like yellow cab Twitter all the time. Yellow cab, got in a cab, and this happened, got in a cab. Can you believe this cab driver?
Taxi cab culture was real. It was a whole thing.
That's what I'm saying. And it would have been huge. Like we would have been tweeting about the beads on the seats in taxi cabs, like instead of bodega cats. We'd be talking about this shit all the time.
Do not upswim somebody hailing a cab. That's fights. You get shot over that.
That was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. It was like there were so many confrontations, especially
it was horrible.
On like a Friday or Saturday night if you were trying to get back to Brooklyn, and cabs would be rolling around and asking you where you're going. It was like beef if people tried to jump in front of you for a yellow cab. But again, this would all be such a part of the discourse, so to speak, except that there's probably a good population of people who have moved to New York over the last 5 years who have never sat in the yellow cab. And of course, this is, except for the airport, because you kind of have to there, but potentially not. Like I would guess there are some people, especially people who live in Manhattan, who have not taken yellow cabs. They just have called Ubers every single time.
Or been not ripped off by a livery cab, being like, I'll take you where you want. This is a black Lincoln Town car. It's like $15? Yeah, I'll take you to Queens. And then it's like, that'll be $40. It's like, you said 15. It's like, nah, buddy.
Oh, yeah, there's no way they've dealt with that. But I'm saying I think there's a reasonable chance that people in the Uber era have just not used yellow cabs at all.
Yeah.
I would also say, especially during COVID, they just vanished. I've seen a few more around lately. I've caught a couple, but like the volume is a drop compared to the streets before that were just basically at night all yellow cabs.
The medallion story is crazy. It's like a deviation of an idea that made sense on paper that just like dissolved into chaos. And what I'm talking about is some cab drivers save up. These medallions were the opportunity to drive a cab. These limited medallions it's like Bitcoin in a state like New York or a city like New York. You in order to get one, you had to wait in line and pay for one. But then when Uber happened, it devalued the entire source of income. So all these cab drivers were in debt for these $1 million medallions that they were going to retire off of. It was almost like getting tenure, and all of a sudden that whole structure dissolved, and I believe the Kushners were involved in this, right?
Sounds about right.
It was bad.
I mean, it sounds like you want me to start talking about middlemen.
Chris Middleton?
But look, I think you could put Seamless, you could put Ghost Kitchens, you could put Amazon, you could certainly put Uber, all these companies that are not based in New York City for the most part, that are figuring out ways to siphon out money. My stance on all these is like ban them and create a city-run one. That would just be my... And we've seen legislation, I think, or at least sentiment towards legislation, towards, say, limiting the amount that Seamless or Uber Eats is able to take from a meal that you order online. And in some cases, they were taking 30% of the bill. I just personally think in all of these situations, just ban them. Cities reserve the right to say what's allowed within their borders all the time. There's no Walmart in New York City because New York City didn't want a Walmart. There's fireworks are not illegal. Or excuse me, fireworks are illegal here in New York State. Like there are all types of things that are based on what the population and what its government deems beneficial for the inhabitants. So, like, I don't see a problem with saying, you know what? Amazon, powerful company, not allowed to operate or deliver to New York City. Cool. We're just going to go with that and see how it works. I'm in favor of doing all those. Like, no half steps, like Big Daddy Kane would say. Like, just go all the way. Like, do major moves. And, I am less optimistic that we will see those kind of changes. But that's been my main outlook after COVID and after quarantine and after the shutdown is like, No half-stepping, no bullshit, no quibbling. Try to make moves that substantially benefit and change the lives of people in New York City or America, everyone, to make them less miserable. No bullshitting around, no $600. Stop bullshitting. Like, help people for real. Make real changes. Don't answer to companies and corporations. Just help people out the right way instead of tossing them some breadcrumbs and saying, okay, that'll do. Now back to business.
I understand where you're coming from. In a meeting, I think that, yeah, you're right about a ton of things, and ethically, it makes sense to me. I'm probably like opposed to most of that stuff, but I hear you, and I'm not even trying to like
better not be
engage. But I think everything's imperfect, and everything needs work done to it to make it better constantly. And technology is something that kind of is going very fast. It's going 200 miles an hour, and to be able to make it safe and helpful is a challenge that I hope smart people are tackling. And a lot of restaurant owners I talk to really rely on these services, and it's like it's a new way to do business. I don't have an infrastructure to create an app for my own shit. I don't trust the city to do it for me, because the city taxes me and puts me out of business. So the city doesn't have my interest involved. Seamless is not perfect, and Seamless is fucked in a lot of ways, but we need something like Seamless if we're going to give you food. And everybody who I talk to is like, I would love to have food delivered to me. I'm like, okay, there seems to be a demand and a supply, and we need to make this transition. That's why, like, I really value middlemen, because they make the ecosystem of a forest exist. They're like the mushrooms in the forest.
We don't need middlemen for a food app. We don't. That technology is not that complicated.
I disagree. That technology is very complex, as we're finding out with all technology. There's a degree of skill involved in making them.
There are multiple companies all doing the same thing. You know, people were first to market with it, and that, of course, then creates a situation where the entire goal is to then become a monopoly. It's the Amazon methodology. Uber tried to do it and failed. Seamless tried to do it, and with Grubhub, who actually bought Seamless. I mean, that's the business model. Like, hemorrhage money if you're first to market, and then just try to take it over by hook or by crook. And then at that point, you can figure out how to leverage your power and market dominance into profits.
But you're talking about a market which always needs policing, I think, and lawmakers need to be on this in real time. I'm talking about supply and demand, because if someone is a restaurant with a ton of food and someone is sitting at home being like, I would like some of that food, we just have to figure out a way to make this work. Like,
no one is saying you won't have those apps. I'm just saying the city can create an app, can create
you
it,
trust
can use
the
this
city
technology.
to do any? Look at our subways, man. Look at our taxes. This is like, the city doesn't have our interests in mind. The city wants to make money, so like, I don't want them in charge of this shit.
Well, I mean, but that's also saying, well, you can't trust you can't trust, the government. Like, I just don't believe that.
No, I just don't think the city is good at this thing. Like, I don't want the city to be our nightlife people, but they are. There's a nightlife commission. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, but they have no power. They're powerless. I'm saying.
But like, they can gain power whenever they want. So this is like the city is full of lawmakers.
But
right?
I find the idea that government is fundamentally flawed and inequipped to do anything of value, so it has to necessarily be turned over to the private sector. I just find that inherently flawed and an excuse.
But the city did the medallion thing with the taxis. Like, they are not good at this.
But what happened?
The city didn't regulate it, so it went to shit, and it ruined an entire workforce because the city didn't know how to do it.
Because they didn't regulate Uber, you're saying?
They didn't regulate what was happening before Uber, when it would cost $1 million to acquire one of these before Uber existed. That it was already a problem then. Uber just accelerated it. Uber is in itself an accelerant.
I don't know. I just cannot accept the idea that
you trust government.
I don't particularly trust government, but I find the idea that it is just fundamentally flawed and corrupt and can't do things is an excuse for letting the private sector run rampant, which we've seen. Like, it's the same reason that people think we shouldn't have universal health care. Oh, the government with your health care? No, you got to give it to the good people over, Blue Cross and Blue Shield. They'll know what to do because, they'll run it like a business. There's profits to be made. And I think that idea that the filthy corruption of the tarnished government is just used as a boogeyman for pawning off everything on the private sector. You would say the same thing about like prisons, right? How can we run prisons? Got to give them to people who are trying to make money, and we see what happens in all these places. Like, I don't have faith in the government. I have more faith in the government than the private sector.
I don't, but
I know you don't.
I'm not
knocking you. I'm saying I know you don't.
Has a grasp on technology. I don't think the government has a grasp on what we want. I think the government has grasp on ideology, and I think that is an important thing in our society because a lot of people don't have the luxury of thinking about concepts and whatever you think the vision of our lives should be.
Do you think prisons should be privatized?
No.
Okay, so what's the difference? That's all I'm saying. Is like, if you don't think prisons should be privatized, then why should a food app be privatized? That's all.
Oh, but it's not. It doesn't have to be black and white, and one involves technology more than the other. Like, we all have these phones, right? So
I don't. Again, this. I'm not trying to contest you. Sorry to cut you off. I'm just saying, if we're going to draw a line and say technology, well,
I'm
that's
not drawing
from,
a line though. Like,
but technology, that's for the private sector, but prisons, that's for the public sector. I don't know, man.
I don't think lines works anywhere with anything. So I think with technology, I think the government needs to reach out to people who know what they're doing. Andrew Yang, like, this was his whole platform. It's like, you guys aren't seeing the death that's coming. You're worried about this thing happening now, but in a week, we will be in big trouble. And I only know this because I'm in the room where the trouble is being formulated. And I think it's people like that need to be in government, right? And that's why I was a big Andrew Yang guy. But I think technology is something that is hard to grasp for everybody, including the people involved in it. And I think our government would be served well to invest. And so far it doesn't seem to be, which is fine. It'll happen quickly when it does. Sort of like the idea of UBI was laughable a year ago. Now everyone wants it and it's acceptable. But like, it'll happen fast. I just have a trouble with drawing a line like the nets are bad, the nets are good. I'm like, they might be both.
I'm just saying, I think you could hire a few developers now that the technology exists in the form of Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, Seamless, etc., Caviar. There are many, many companies offering the exact same style of service, which are a restaurant listing, then you pay with a credit card, and then it comes to your door. And you can go to plenty of restaurants, which I do because I don't use any of those kind of sites unless they specifically ask you to use them. And it's the same deal. It'll be a portal that, you order your food and they take a small credit card fee and maybe something else. I'm just saying, this technology is everywhere. We're not talking about the broadest sort of reaches of the spectrum on the vanguard of technology. We're talking about something that has existed for many years now and is used in all over the place. And I'm just saying, I think it would make a lot of sense for New York City to hire some developers, create a system that is a listing of food with menus and photos like all of these other places that everyone would sign up for because it would be the official New York City one. You could have reviews, just the exact same shit. I'm not saying to reinvent the wheel. I'm just saying do the same thing and just make it not for profit. That's all. Don't take 30% off the orders. Just pay for your expenses to keep it running, and everyone would sign up for it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they have to do reinvent our lives. I'm just saying these are the things that I would like New York City and other places to advocate for, and considering how upended our lives have been, I think this is time to try to make these substantial changes.
Yeah, in a vacuum, I think a thing that doesn't make money that helps every restaurant would be perfect, right? But it gets to a granular debate, and I always believe like there's only 10 great NBA players at one time, 20 if we're lucky in a golden age. And I think with technology, it kind of exists in everything. It exists in the same way. Like, to me personally, in my opinion, technology isn't, or technological innovation isn't a natural resource. There's certain people who are good at this, and identifying where the strengths are is important. Like .gov did not work, and they tried to do .gov to handle, your tickets, your taxes. It just it was corrupt, like not corrupt like with corruption. The framework of the architecture of the websites were corrupt, and there was an issue with Obama's healthcare thing. It's like, we have Medicare for all, sign up with this website, and it crashed in a second.
I mean, I'm not saying the government has been great at these things, but I'm not going to ever say, well, if it's a website, the government can't do it. Like, it's
I'm not
2020,
saying that either. I'm just saying, I think to say
and I don't even view Seamless as a technology. It's not fucking technology. It's a website. It's been around for 5 years. It's e-com. It's not technology. It's not like they're breaking atoms. They're bringing you a bagel with your cinnamon, your cinnamon bagel in your locks. Like,
there was a Seamless issue, I think, earlier this year that was a big deal because something in the framework of the script went wrong, and it cost restaurants thousands of dollars, and it took them all hands on deck to fix, I believe. And when Google goes down, we see what happens to business, and I think I really value people who are good at that stuff.
These sites aren't even good. They're garbage. No one even likes them.
But
like, that's my thing. It's like, it's not like, well, they're a huge behemoth. They're powerful. These sites fucking suck. Seamless is junk. Like, they're terrible sites.
But to get to the point where you think it's junk is the peak of what their capabilities are, right? Like,
which I view as extremely easy to duplicate from a governmental standpoint. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I disagree with that. That's almost like saying any team can do what the Rockets did.
Well, I completely disagree. I think the entire strength of Seamless and Caviar is based on market share. The product itself blows. It's like, it's functional. It's trash. But what? They just have all the restaurants on them. That's their only benefit. Seamless sucks. It sucks. It sucks to scroll through. The reviews are terrible. The menus and photos suck. The whole thing is terrible. They just have more restaurants than other places. That's it. It's just a white pages for restaurants. It's no different from the literal yellow pages when we were growing up. It's just a yellow pages. The yellow page, that's all it is.
It's like that comedy bit where it's like, I'm in the plane, and someone's like, oh, the Wi-Fi's out, I can't watch my movie. And it's like, well, you're on a plane flying to a foreign country with the world in your hands. And I see both sides of that. I see your side.
I'm just saying, I refuse to be impressed by fucking Seamless, man. I refuse. I am not impressed at all by anything they're doing, and I do not think it would be difficult to hire some programmers and some coders and some engineers to replicate that for the city. That's all I'm saying.
Is there an app that impresses you?
I don't know, but that one certainly does not, dude.
Wait, is there any app that you think is like, whoa, this is phenomenal?
I don't know. What app impresses you?
All the social media apps blow my fucking mind. I think all the music apps blow my mind still.
Yeah, those are far more impressive. Seamless is junk, dude. It's junk.
I find, whether in a bubble, and I don't mean to trigger you, I find Amazon to be a fascinating fucking website and app. No trigger. But like, I think Google blows my mind. People think Google is the internet, which is a mind blower. When Ballmer pays salary tax caps like above and beyond, when he's like, Luke Kennard, whatever, I'll pay the tax on whatever I sign him for because I define the way you think the computers are. Like, he introduced the idea of Windows, and I'm like, holy shit. It's not a bunch of code. He made that code into what we just assume computers are. I'm impressed by it, but eventually it's going to be a red dot called Hal, and the vision of that to me is like pretty unique and rare.
Well, I mean, you have the ability to compartmentalize, what you find interesting and what you find morally reprehensible in a way that I don't. Like, it's hard for me to sit here and talk about Amazon and say, it's an interesting company, their technology is interesting to me, without me hating Amazon, because I think they are an enormously destructive company, like an absolute blight on our society. And we're still only beginning to grasp the ramifications of how awful they are for our society. And like, you're right. I do get triggered by that. It's hard for me to sit here and say, well, let's talk about the Amazon interface. Let's talk about this. That's interesting to me. It is difficult for me. And I'm not saying that as like a moral judgment on you. I'm not. Like, you have that ability to separate those things. I'm not saying that you like Amazon. I'm saying it is tough for me to look at this and say, oh, seamless. These guys are great at what they do. I'm like, so what if it's kind of tricky? It shouldn't exist. It should not be funneling 30% of every order that we make in our city 3,000 miles away to some disruptive tech dipshits who just happen to be first to market and gobbled up all their competitors. That is crazy to me. That is crazy to me. That, like, we shouldn't be doing everything in our power to prevent that from happening. To just sort of throw up our hands and say, well, the tech guys, they're good at this. We got to let them do it. I can't accept that.
That's not happening, though. They're in all sorts of lawsuits, and there's what never happened that I thought would happen, and I'm not talking about drum and bass taking over the music scene. I'm talking about, remember a few years ago there was a movement to simplify everyone's digital life, and a lot of Zoomers were buying phones that just made phone calls and simple texts with like no emojis, no apps, no nothing. I thought that was going to be a distinct subculture, but I don't hear about that much anymore.
Yeah, I remember hearing about some like cool kids in Paris who were into that.
I know of a Zoomer who did that, who got a phone that only texted and made calls, and she ditched it after a month just for that map app because she was getting lost too much. And she was like, I just need the map thing because I was like missing appointments. It's like, oh yeah, I remember I used to have a little business card size map of New York City in my wallet when I was a kid.
I mean, I think there are parts of technology that you can't go back from. I also think
this is harder. It's a degree of difficulty that's different. That I should say, it's not harder. It's just a different task.
My point is just that I think the last people on Earth that you should just let go do their thing and get out of their way have been proven to be the tech guys. I mean, last people.
Okay, let's move. We know how we stand on tech. We'll talk about this more later. But you make a good point. I mean, I hear you. Tech guys, could we talk about Ballmer? And I'm segueing to basketball.
Okay, I like this.
Ballmer, tech dude. Does it reflect on what you saw on the court last night? The opener of the NBA season, LA versus LA.
The NBA is back. We saw the battle for Los Angeles, the Lakers against the Clippers. I don't know how Ballmer's impact on the Clippers has much to do with last night, but they have been a smarter team under his tenure than they were under Donald Sterling.
Joseph Tsai. Yeah. We're tech rampant here.
Well, yeah, I mean, Tsai hasn't done anything. But, Ballmer's been there when the Clippers went from a laughingstock to a contender. But I would say this.
Tsai, too?
I mean, come on, man. That was the Russian. The Russian, longest view in the room.
But Tsai's the one who signed the two guys.
Who?
Joseph Tsai.
Did he sign Marks and
No, but he got KD and Kyrie.
Okay. Anyway, moving along, back to the Clippers.
Are you triggered right now?
Yeah, you're just saying crazy shit to trigger me. Yes, Joseph Tsai signed KD and Kyrie. Smart, great work by him. Yes, absolutely. The guy who had just bought the team, like a month earlier? Yeah, he did a fantastic job.
Well, he gave interviews about how that was his plan, and that's why he bought the team. I mean, I don't know why this is difficult, but okay. Ballmer. The Clippers.
I mean, I don't have any thoughts about Ballmer at all. Anyway, I don't. None.
Do you have thoughts about the Clippers?
Well, I thought the Clippers looked good. I thought they were as good a team as the Lakers last season. I think they were built to beat the Lakers. And I think we were robbed of a great Western Conference Finals because they didn't have someone who could adequately guard your boy Nikola Jokic.
Who's hard to guard. He's an amazing player.
And, we saw a wave of bad press that came out about the Clippers and about, the lack of accountability, the fragility of Paul George, Kawhi Leonard wanting to live in San Diego so he could eat fish tacos and surf. All these things about the moral failings of the organization, which led to their disappointing performance in the playoffs. And this is, of course, an inclination that happens over and over and over, which is ascribing ethical issues to basketball ones. You can't guard Jokic. You know why? Because the inmates are running the asylum. Like, it's just this bullshit that we hear over and over and over, where they attach morals to on-court outcomes. Mm-hmm. So anyway, Clippers are a really fucking good team. And Paul George is a wonderful player with an immaculate hairline. Some great braids in last night. And the amount of criticism that he faced, not only was it horseshit, it just didn't even make sense. Because we know he's great. And when people were talking about how they wanted to get rid of him or he should be traded, like, this is Paul George. He's one of the best players of his generation. He may not be a top 5 player, but there's no disputing that Paul George is absolutely great. And he was the best player on the floor last night for either team. He was magnificent. I don't know. I think the Clippers should be on the short list of teams, along with the Lakers, along with maybe the Nets, along with the Bucks. Those are the 4 teams that I view as being the favorites to win the title this year.
Yeah, the Clippers, I feel like, came true to their promise constantly. I mean, guarding Nikola Jokic is a conundrum. And I think any team would have trouble if he's streaking. They got tired and they lost against the Lakers. But watching the game last night, it was kind of a confirmational thing. I was like, of course the Clippers could beat the Lakers. The Lakers are also very good. And, like, it would be a tough 7-game series, or it might be a sweep. It's hard to put a bow on what we see when we see these two teams play each other, either in the bubble or not in the bubble, or in the first game of a season, because the outcomes are probably going to be the same but different. And what I mean by that is the outcome is the same in that the Clippers are pretty good and probably beat the Lakers on a night like this, but different in that LeBron James and Anthony Davis are nuclear weapons that could also sweep them. And it's exciting, and I think it's a pretty... There's parity
I
here.
I don't see a lot of chance of that happening. I don't think LeBron and AD, as great as they are probably the 2 best players on the court when they're playing the Clippers. But I don't see that as a sweep. Like, I think... I know what you mean. Like, a sweep does
There's
not...
There's a probability of that. There's a 5% chance. And if that hits, I wouldn't bet my life on 5%.
Well, I mean, that's just like... we always do this, right? And I don't mean me and you. I mean, we look at the results of a game as exposing a truth. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's necessarily how well people shot. A team, someone has a bad game, that changes the outcome, and now we have to reevaluate it. And I think that's what happened with the Clippers. Mm-hmm. They had a bad matchup for basketball reasons against Denver, like in the paint.
And PG went cold.
Kawhi went colder.
Kawhi was cold too.
That's the wildest part about that, was that, sure, Paul George was getting roasted and hit the side of the backboard with a terrible shot. But, like, Kawhi was even worse. Kawhi was an absolute debacle.
And they mentioned that on the broadcast last night, too.
But, because Kawhi won that ring, he gets a pass that, I think playoff P doesn't.
And Paul George has a long history with the memory of fans. He has a long memory, right? From his breaking his leg horribly on Team USA to like the whole Doc Rivers family scandal to asking out of trades. And I think that is his sin for fans, right? Committing to Oklahoma City and then leaving Oklahoma City. That really rubbed people the wrong way. I think disloyalty is the thing that people associate with Paul George, and they can call him playoff P or bubble P in a mocking way, but I do think it's about his perceived disloyalty, where other players do this all the time. Giannis will do this eventually, and I think as a Twitter community, we're going to turn on Giannis, but it's like a song we know how to sing. We did this with Jimmy Butler in Minnesota, and now we love him. And I think Paul George is a spectacular player in his prime that will win a ton of games, but he might not. So it's interesting to see this play out because the Lakers didn't get better. Dennis Schroeder is a wonderful player. I think that was a great get.
Well, all right. Let's talk about the Lakers a little bit. I see where you're going. So let's just. Mm-hmm. So the Lakers, fresh off of a championship in the bubble, that probably doesn't count, and they had their ring ceremony, which was really long, but had some tender moments with the youth. They've made some changes designed to make a strong team even better, and we saw their first look at the Lakers last night, and it includes a few new faces, a few old-ass faces, two long-in-the-tooth starters. Wesley Matthews, I think he started.
Yeah, he did not end up playing a ton of minutes.
But they brought in Wesley Matthews to more or less replace Danny Green as a 3-and-D defender, and then they brought in Marc Gasol as a veteran center to replace the god Dwight Howard. We saw they look old.
Man, Del Boca Vista, like they should be in Knicks uniforms, to be honest. And Wesley Matthews was. Life after Del Boca Vista, Social Security. These guys, Marc Gasol especially, awesome. I am a huge Marc Gasol fan. Wonderful career, instant Hall of Famer, champion. He looks washed, man. And it's not like he's not trying. It's just he seems to be running out of talent in ways that were even depreciated from last season.
I was going to say, he looked pretty old.
Yeah.
Last season to begin with.
It's true.
You know, he did not look the same in Toronto after their championship season. That's what happens when you get old.
Yeah,
He's got a lot of mileage. He's played a lot of international ball. You know, he has had a full, rich career. He's won Defensive Player of the Year. He's won a title.
Award. Yeah.
He's incredible. Like the pride.
Jokic won.
The pride of Aragon. But he's old as dirt.
Yeah.
And he was never a fantastic athlete, so he can still be a good passer. He's improved his shooting. But I look at this Lakers team, and I don't think we're going to see substantial changes in the group that'll be on the court when it really matters. I think you'll still get back to your LeBron, AD, Caruso, KCP, and someone. You know, I think you'll get back to that core when the game is on the line. But Wesley Matthews is not a replacement for Danny Green. He's not a replacement. He looked washed 3 years ago, played fairly well for Milwaukee, but you got to remember Milwaukee was using a gimmick
system. Yep.
You know, they allowed you to give up threes. Wesley Matthews, I don't think he can contest threes and play that close to guys and then, you know, stay in front of them like he could a few years ago. He's an older dude with an Achilles injury. You know, he's
that
not the
injury
same
was a heartbreaker,
player.
man. Yeah, he was a fun 3-and-D guy, and that really zapped him of a lot of his lateral quickness and his closeout speed.
So I think the Bucks were able to utilize him in really smart ways that I was surprised by. I thought he was completely washed. The Bucks made him look good. So, you know, more power to him extending his career and being productive. But I'm not convinced that he is a replacement for Danny Green at all. And I also look at this team and some of these lineups, him included, Gasol included, Schroeder included, Kuzma included. I just don't know if they have enough good shooting to respect. You know, I've harped on this for the last year or so. The amount of attention that good shooters get versus mediocre shooters get is just incredible. Like, the difference is stark.
And we saw those players get paid this season, like Luke Kennard. You have Davis Bertans, the original 3-6 Mafia.
Joe, the human bucket Harris.
Yep. The OG acne fish head. I just think like these players are correctly being valued now, and we're seeing these large contracts go out because these guys are a limited resource, right?
Yeah, I mean, we talk all the time about being wrong. And what's fascinating about the NBA is how fast it evolves. You know, we went from the idea that spacing just meant that you could shoot threes at league average amount. And now it's clear that that doesn't matter at all. You know, Ben Falk from Cleaning the Glass put up a couple plays showing how teams are now putting a defender at the nail and basically not guarding a mediocre three-point shooter. And we're talking about someone who shoots, you know, low 30s, just not guarding him at all. And he was showing the counter to that was cutting to the basket behind the defender. And I really love this about basketball, that we always just keep going back to these fundamentals. And instead of being like a boomer, you know, mourning the loss of the mid-range jumper, you can look at it and say, hey, maybe the mid-range would be helpful in these kind of places. It gets back to cutting and passing and being able to take your man off the dribble. We haven't lost this idea of basketball in the sense that we've been told. We've been convinced that the game has been destroyed by three-pointers and pace and small ball. No, man, it's still the same fundamentals. Guard your man, beat your guy off the dribble, cut to the basket when you're open, find the open player. You know, like, it's all still there, and I think that's what's so cool. And what I love about basketball was that our perceptions and what we've discussed about the value of spacing has changed within 2 years. You know, we would roasted unitaskers repeatedly. But now you can look at it and say, you know what? Now that everyone can shoot, guys who are exceptionally good at it are much more valuable than I kind of thought.
And
you know, I'm not sure it's worth having a JJ Redick if he's going to compromise your defense, but offensively, it's a big deal to have a guy that no one will ever leave. And I don't think the Lakers have that kind of guy at all on the team.
And isn't it fascinating, like, every iteration of a LeBron team, some iterations, if we ignore the Heatles, like, even though there's good players that surround him, he kind of, like, marginalizes maybe the statistical output, or do these players end up watching him do his thing sometimes? Is having a personality and a skill level like a teammate in LeBron in a teammate, does that affect a player like KCP, who was different in Detroit? And again, we wake up in 2021, game 1, and I'm like, it's LeBron and AD alone again. In the same way, it always ends up being like Kevin Love and LeBron. And all of a sudden, this award for General Manager of the Year that people wanted to give to Pelinka, I'm like, this looks like a poor construct of a team. And I don't know if it's because it was poorly constructed, which I think it probably was, or it's the LeBron effect again.
I mean, we've seen so many permutations of LeBron James teams. You know, we've seen ones where he was playing almost a small ball 5. We've seen him in Miami as the 3. We've seen him return to being the 3 in Los Angeles, but play, even in their description, a point guard role, which, of course, he always has. We've seen him play on teams that were pick and roll based. We've seen him play on teams that had, you know, centers like Big Z. We've seen him play with lob catchers like Tristan Thompson. I think there is something about the shadow of LeBron, like, overwhelming his teammates.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why someone like Kyrie wanted to go somewhere else. But I do think this Lakers team it might not be perfect for what you want as a LeBron team. Are they good enough to win? Yes, of course. They have Anthony Davis. They have LeBron James. They're going to be top 5, top 7 in offense and defense. I just look at it and say, if you did this a little smarter, you'd be really, 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 really tough to beat.
Yeah.
But you didn't quite do it smart enough. You left an opening. And when I look at the team, I'm like, these guys coming off the bench, they are not great shooters and they are not great defenders. And the things that you need from your teammates when you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis are perimeter defense and perimeter shooting, because neither of them are great at it.
Yep.
And they didn't really satisfy those requirements. They didn't totally shit the bed like last year Sixers teams did, but they didn't really nail it.
Yeah, the formula in which the Clippers won last night could involve letting Montrezl Harrell do his thing. And Montrezl Harrell had an efficient, good game. But you want him shooting. You want him to end possessions. You'll live with that. And you're right. Like, them investing in an undersized power forward like Harrell with a motor, with all the heart in the world, is the error, I think. And I think letting go of Danny Green was the mistake, because he had that optically bad shot and he got death threats. Like, I don't know what played into that, but like, you kind of don't let players like that go. And even the Clippers signing Luke Kennard to that huge contract, my eyes kind of perked up when I saw that, is like they're acknowledging a skill set that I think Pelinka has not shown a willingness to invest in.
Yeah, the Danny Green swap out for Schroeder, I understand that in a vacuum, Schroeder might be the better player.
Schroeder's good.
Good player.
Yeah,
super
like
quick. He can score. He's
aggressive. He passes quickly. He makes decisions quickly.
Yeah, pretty good. He's gotten far better as a decision maker. I think that could even be a Chris Paul,
Oh, yeah.
some residue from playing with a point guard. But I think he's gotten better at making decisions. He's tough to stay in front of. He's tiny. He's a little water bug. You can kind of push him around a bit. But on that team, I don't know that Schroeder is better than Danny Green. Danny Green is a guy who takes open threes, gives the ball back to better teammates, and plays smart defense, especially smart team defense. I don't know that Schroeder does those things. He has to have the ball to do shit.
That's true.
And if I have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, I want them having the ball doing shit.
Yeah, totally. And, it's just the first game, so maybe they were just letting their teammates do their thing. But I agree.
You were right. They didn't even come back in the game.
Yeah.
It was a 10-point game with 12... It was a 12-point game with 2 minutes to go, and they waved the white flag, which I don't think we would see in a game that meant something.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any fear of them missing the conference finals or going deep into the playoffs. But, so in that way, I agreed with the TNT crew. Like, a lot happens in a season to get to that point. But this is not the perfect team, and I didn't really love... Like, watch them sign Pau Gasol. There's rumors that Pau wants to play with his brother, and why wouldn't you? It sounds like a great time, and the team's going to be good, but, like...
He's led them to 2 championships in the past.
He's been their best player for 2 championships. And I think that is where the weakness is in a mentality, or having LeBron James on your team, like getting a James Jones to fill a roster spot, who was a very good shooter. But just acquiring things to make LeBron James happy is maybe the small curse you have as a LeBron James, like a team manager. But I don't know. I do not see them as front runners. Could they win? Absolutely.
I would still put them as front runners, but
these two are very good.
I've said this enough times. I just don't view these teams, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Bucks, the Nuggets, the Nets, the Sixers, whoever.
Mm-hmm. Those are the teams.
I don't view any of these teams as good as being as good as the Warriors and the Sixers and Toronto from 2 seasons ago. I think I love that this year's teams are all flawed and not that great. I think it's cool. I enjoy players choosing to go where they want to go. But I got to say, not having a team like Golden State looming above the field is really cool, because you can look at the Lakers and they have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and who's their third best player? Like Dennis Schroeder. He's all right. Yeah. I mean, he's all right. He's pretty good. You're like, washed Gasol. Like, It's pretty fun. These teams are flawed. And the Clippers, like, who's their third best player?
Lou. Bev?
Yeah. I don't know. Baca? Cool.
I love Ibaka.
Yeah, good player. A nice addition. I think they upgraded.
Yes,
but again,
I agree.
That's not like a scary third player.
No.
It's like solid, respectable. But like
10 years ago, Ibaka was a scary third player. Fourth player.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, let's shift over to the East, though.
Oh, wait. Before that, could we have a moment of silence for the Warriors? Can we have a moment of silence for coaching great Steve Kerr, who was pummeled last night for maybe he's not a great coach? Do you have any takes on that one?
Well, right. This is leading us into the discussion of the Nets. But let's do a little obituary for their opponents in last night's game, the hapless Golden State Warriors.
Keystone Cops.
Seems so long ago.
Oh, my God. What did we see last night?
Remember the Dubs? I felt like they won like an undeserved championship or two at some point.
Yeah.
I forget.
I mean, last episode, I was like, I think 538 has the Warriors a little too low. I think they had them 22nd. And as soon as they took the court last night, I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot. It was my memory playing tricks on me. This team is awful.
Yeah. Oh, you guys are doing the thing where you put bad players in the court. Yeah. Honestly, I can't ride with that.
I was like, where's D'Angelo Russell? Oh, he's gone, right? Where's Draymond Green? Oh, he's not playing.
There's some schadenfreude here, of course, with the Warriors as an organization whose executives boasted about being light years ahead of everyone else. And you look at the team, you're like, in the future, we're starting.
But maybe
we're starting Paschal and Wiggins and like that's the future of basketball. Okay, all right. Well, hopefully we'll get there someday.
Talking about Schadenfreude. I love dragging any team that passes up a Luka or a clear pick like LaMelo Ball. The Warriors should have taken LaMelo Ball. He is the star of the draft, and they took Weissman, an ultimately a pretty good player. Definitely should have gone in the top 10, but like a boomer ass pick. And I'm like, maybe not quite light years anymore.
He looked okay out there.
He's good. He's a good player.
But
he's not a genius like LaMelo Ball.
No. But the point you were making, though, and I think about this with various teams, because you can have whatever philosophy you want. You can say, we're the Warriors. We play with pace and space and ball movement. It's the beautiful game. Like, we are playing basketball on a level that few ever even considered. Now, behold.
That was crazy.
They were incredible. Now it's like, wait, you're not doing that anymore? I thought that was what you did. Like, we did that because we had Clay and Curry and Dre and Iguodala, and we had all the best players. Yeah, we actually don't have that weird spinning cyclone of ball movement and beauty and elegance and domination when we're doing it with Andrew Wiggins and James Wiseman, oddly enough. It's that intersection of reality and the theoretical.
Yeah, and I do have a degree of sympathy for a team like the Warriors in that, the Clay injury, that's double bad luck. That's just awful. And the first injury was terrible, and the second one was just laughable, I think. And you put Clay on the court last night, and it's a completely different team. So I question a lot of their moves, to your point. Like, the Wiggins thing kind of baffles me. I thought for sure they were going to leverage the second pick and Wiggins for something. But, they ended up settling with their assets there, which was fine. Wiggins has shown no signs of getting better, being a better player. To the minute, he has not shown no signs of that.
I still don't actually understand, outside of, I guess, salary cap ramifications, why they did that trade.
I don't either, because D'Angelo Russell's good. Is he so much of a snitch? Not in the Donovan Mitchell way, in the Sopranos way. Is he that toxic where you give him up for Andrew Wiggins?
No.
I don't think so either.
It wasn't even about that. I think it was just salary related from my understanding of it. But to take back a player who isn't good for one that is good and has value around the league, a bewildering decision. And, it's a little trite to elbow drop on Wiggins. I put up a tweet that got sent around last night where I was comparing him to the ghost of Christmas future was Jeff Green standing across the court. And I almost feel bad. Like, what am I still doing shitting on Wiggins? No one even thinks he's good. It was just low-hanging fruit. Yeah. Like a Christmas basket.
But we see players like this, and I get the joke. Like, earlier in the night, we were talking about, like, Tim Thomas. And, like, he looks like a baller. Why isn't he a perennial all-star? His body's right. He moves with, like, this ease that looks like he's a great player, but he never was actually good. And I think some players like Andrew Wiggins, everything fits except he's not that thing.
And then Jeff Green Hive came for me. Like, how dare you disrespect Jeff Green? I'm like, I'm just all right. I kind of like Jeff Green. It was a compliment.
His ceiling was Kevin Garnett, or I forgot who they were comparing him to, which was so unfair. It's what we're doing to Luka now, not to
maybe T-Mac.
Yeah, for sure.
Just because that combination of mobility, you could shoot, like wingspan, athleticism. Jeff Green will still come down and do some just annihilating dunk that you do not expect from him.
For sure. And, it makes me, quickly as an aside, it makes me think of what we're doing to Luka Doncic now. Being like, he's MVP, the sky's the limit. He might average 40, 15, and 10. I'm like, don't do it to this kid. He's not that dude yet, or maybe ever. He is an incredible player who might win MVP, but he has flaws in his game that, like, people will come after eventually when the shininess is gone. And I'm like, just let Luka be himself. And I'm like, to that point, we got to let Wiggins be himself. And it feels like low-hanging fruit, right? Because we're just watching him play last night, and I'm like, this is rough, man. The Warriors are a bad team with one of the greatest players ever in his prime still.
I think Curry is the best shooter of all time, and I think he's a wonderful basketball player. But if in the sort of Harden-Curry wars, I've always been Team Harden.
Harden's incredible.
But mostly because of his durability and that he's been able to be that guy who generates, 65% of the team's offense on a nightly basis.
And he's a well-rounded human who enjoys music and friendship and traveling.
He's a king. No shaming. He's got COVID. He's a superhero.
Wait, does he have COVID?
Yeah, he got it over the summer.
Oh.
He's an antibodies-equipped hero.
Yes.
Out here supporting small businesses. But the thing about bringing out those two is whenever we made those comparisons, Golden State fans were very, very vehement that Curry could handle that same role. If he didn't have such talented teammates, he could do that. He could be that guy who drops 35 a game with 14 assists, that he had that bag. He had all that package. He could do it all the same way.
He might, though.
Let's see.
Yeah, but he's years older, right? But, I think they're very, very comparable as vacuum values. They do such different things on the court. James Harden is one of the best players I've ever seen play basketball, and no disrespect to Steph Curry, he's almost as good. That is a wonderful, wonderful player. I hear you. I'm Team Harden too.
I'm not disrespecting Curry at all. I think he's literally the best shooter in the history of the planet. I think a lot of his success specifically dovetailed with the rise of the three-pointer in the NBA and being on a team that liberated him to take that many threes and be part of a system with other talent that, because Klay is a great shooter and Draymond is unique, and they were this phenomenal team that we've just been describing for the last 15 minutes. Yeah. But part of this argument is can you do the dreary shit of dragging a bum-ass team to being pretty good off of sustained effort? And to me, James Harden has proven over and over and over he will do that. Put whoever on the court, they'll win games, and he will just wearily hang their team over his back and plod his way with foul shots and threes and kicking it to the corner to PJ Tucker and just get you your 50 wins. And I'm like, all right, you got a bad draw this year, man. Clay getting hurt, that sucks. Wiggins, he's kind of bummy. But, like, this is your chance. I know you're older, but, like, last year was a lost season for Golden State. Like, let's see Curry do it. Let's see him drag this team to the playoffs off of his ability alone.
I love Curry. One of the reasons I love Curry is I think he wants it less. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, he grew up in basketball. He had like a really cinematic fairy tale childhood where he was like shooting baskets with NBA All-Stars because his father was a star. You know, he played in All-Star game competitions, and Curry was kind of anointed into this guild immediately. And when Kevin Durant joined the already good Warriors, Curry kind of didn't flinch. He was just like, oh, he can win. He's the best player on the team. He can win Finals MVP. This is my guy. I'm chilling. I know I'm great. And I'm like, oh, he doesn't have this like Jordan-esque fire to him that I always enjoyed, where he was like, I always talk about that when that moment in the playoffs when Chris Paul shot a Curry-esque jumper over him and did the shimmy in front of Curry's face, and Curry just kind of laughed. I'm like, oh, we're seeing a switching of kind of a mentality to maybe a new generation. I don't know, but Curry doesn't seem to have the same hang-ups as Harden does. Like, Curry doesn't fight in the same way, and that's what I enjoy about Curry. And he may not score 40 points, not because he doesn't want to, but like he may see the season as another lost season instead of trying to be MVP.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And I do think from a legacy standpoint, if Curry stays healthy this year and the Warriors are not good, he's going to see a huge, huge blow to where he's perceived on the all-time list. And whether that's fair or not, I just think that'll happen.
It's happening to Steve Kerr right now.
You know, I'm willing to perpetuate this idea. I'm down to tarnish his rings, but we're gonna see it because it's pretty obvious. If you say, well, okay, you got hurt last year, you missed it. That's a mulligan. Whatever. Okay, you came back. Like, it wasn't the fall of the Golden State Empire. You know, Durant didn't just leave you there holding the bag, etc. Like, you've had a year. You got the number 2 pick in the draft. You've had some time to add guys like Drip Lord, Oubre around you. Okay. It's a regular year. This one counts. And if he comes out there and they are like a 30-win team, I feel like perception is going to drop him like outside of that like top 15 like harshly.
It's going to be the popular opinion, and it will be trending every night.
Yeah.
It makes me think, like, I hold maybe Timberwolves Kevin Garnett a tick higher than Curry all time. Both incredible, right? And Garnett had some winning seasons in Minnesota for sure, and he had some talent. Sam Cassell, Latrell Sprewell, amazing players. And Curry has Weissman and Draymond Green, who I think depreciated in a way that was maybe unfortunately predictable. But it's going to be interesting and hard, and they're going to come after him like they came after Kerr last night. It's like, is Kerr a good coach? I'm like, yeah, but like it's your fault for caring about coaches. Like, he's okay, he's good, but when you have Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green in their absolute primes, yeah, you're Luke Walton, who goes only wins as a coach, you know? And I think you're, in a way that a coach is a victim to the talent that he has. I think a player is a victim of maybe the talent that they have.
Sure. I think that's true. But, looking at a coach who wants their team to play a certain way and players just don't. And, just from a Sixers perspective, you look at Brett Brown, and when they first started running the carousel of talent in the early days of the process, they were an awful team. The worst team in the NBA, or one of the very worst. Most of that talent did not stick around in the league. I'm talking specifically the very first couple of years. And even the guys who ended up being pretty decent, like the Jeremy Grants, were not back then. but they took really high value shots. They pushed the tempo. It's a lot easier to be theoretical when there are just random moving pieces. When they become pieces that you actually have to build around and keep, it's a lot harder to make those guys just bend to the will of a system or a coach. And you saw that with Brett Brown again, that they went to a team that just shot a ton of mid-range jumpers because they had Jimmy Butler and they had Tobias Harris and they had Joel Embiid. It's like, you can have all the ideas you want, but if you can't get your personnel to agree with you, or their natural inclinations just trend away from those ideals, then like your orthodoxy doesn't even matter.
It's very true.
It's like we don't know what Kerr actually believes, but Wiseman and Wiggins and Oubre want to take some mid-range jumpers, and they're gonna.
Oubre's he's a fine basketball player, man. He's a starter.
Hey, look, he looks cool. That's all that matters.
He's wavy as hell. Can we talk about the East a little bit? You brought up the Sixers, their competition.
All right, yeah. So we got our first glimpse. Speaking of theoretical to reality, we got our first actual glimpse of what the new look Brooklyn Nets are like. We saw with thine own lion eyes. We saw Durant and Kyrie taking the court together on the same team. Some of those hot takes from that 40-plus first quarter were serious. Got some texts about how they're going undefeated.
I love it. 72-0, baby.
As a Brooklyn Net day one.
Yeah.
How gratifying was it for you, a lifelong Nets day one?
It looked like an all-star game out there for a second. Like, I'd never seen Kyrie and KD. Like, to your point, reality hit, and I was like, there's some adults in the room. There's like 3 superstars on the court, including Curry, and everyone else. Everyone else is the same. And these 3 just are palpably different. They hit different. And the excitement, I hope the excitement bubbles over, because those 2 together are as good as advertised. Kyrie is electric and funny as hell. Burn that sage, buddy. And he definitely burnt the sage around KD's Achilles, because KD looked rusty but back.
There's those guys who are like the Jamal Murrays. I just like picking on him.
Yeah.
Who are really talented, and on a given night they can make all the shots. They can.
Donovan Mitchell.
These guys are really good. They're very, very good players. They are excellent shot makers, and they can win you a game, maybe a series, just off of their talents if it hits at the right time. But Kyrie and KD are different because it's all the time. Like it's the consistency with which they are great shooters, great scorers, degree of difficulty. It's just night in, night out. They are so good at it. So good at it. Yeah. And I think what's going to happen with the Nets is, if you hit those guys, if you catch those guys on a night when they're both on, it's going to be just lights out, like it was for Golden State, mid through the second quarter, where it's like, all right, we're giving up the ghost. Like, they're just going to tear into teams on sometimes because of that shot making. And there'll also be times when they roar back, or times when they blow a game open in the fourth. And I think we'll view these traits, this ability to just tear a game open off its hinges, as viewing them as almost unbeatable at times. And I think that's a natural response, because again, having those 2 shot makers of that quality, there are just going to be moments when it just goes bonkers. Like, okay, let's play. Cool, you're down 45-19 at the half, or at the first quarter. Like, well, fuck. God fucking damn it. They both just score 16 in the first quarter.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen. And I think the bigger question is not whether or not they're going to be explosive and just hang insane numbers on teams every now and then. It's like, can they do that against great teams consistently enough to win a championship? Can you beat 3 good opponents in a row, 2 in the East, 1 in the finals, with this style of play. And I'm not talking about the D'Antoni up-tempo shooting threes. I'm saying by being like tied to two great shot makers and not being tied to great creators. It's a unique team in that way.
I totally agree. And while I was watching it, I was really enjoying it because the tension with this Nets team is a very high-strung, unique tension. And to your point, right? It is not necessarily a philosophy. It is a reality thing of like, these guys are shot makers. There's always a threat of them getting injured, and there's always a threat of them missing. And these are not Paul Georges. Like, these, who is incredible. These are a tier above. And the tension of them just like knocking in the pop a shot kind of style of play is that like eventually this will end. And if it ends at the wrong time, they're done, because the philosophy doesn't really prop up the team. They prop up the team. And I can't wait to see this play out, because barring an injury, of course, if one of them hobbles off the court, it's not a good thing. But their style of play, they've proven through their career histories that they can sustain this. But the tension is against whom and for how long?
You know, looking at the recent history of the NBA, there aren't many teams that are just based on like shot makers, two shot makers. I know Kyrie can pass. You know, he's gifted at everything.
KD's not bad at passing either.
Not bad.
Yeah,
but that's not exactly what they do.
You don't want them to pass.
They're mostly shot makers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, they'll both kick the ball to the open man. They're not unwilling passers. They can see the floor.
Yeah.
Karis LeVert dribbles with his head down. It's fucking wild.
Yeah.
To see someone in the NBA, just like, there are not many guys in the NBA who go into the lane with their head straight looking at the floor like Karis LeVert.
It's that D Brown dunking shit.
But he's good at it. He's good. He's a
good player. Yeah.
Mushing his way into the lane and figuring out how to
future
scoop it into the
Houston
cup.
Rocket, Karis LeVert.
But, you know, you look at every team that had LeBron. He was also a distributor, you know? And when you looked at those Lakers teams with Kobe and Shaq, you know, Shaq as an interior presence was like an incredible, like high efficiency field goal percentage. Like, it was a different kind of entity. And I'm wondering if you can draw parallels. Can you say this kind of efficiency that you get from KD, despite it being perimeter oriented, is it the same as like Shaq's efficiency in some ways? But I still, back to where we were going, I think it's about like shot making. Mm-hmm. I think it's tough. You know, that Golden State team was really reliant on Draymond's playmaking alongside the space that was created by shooters. Mm-hmm. I'm also mostly concerned about the Brooklyn defense, to be totally honest. Mm-hmm. Look at that team, and you know, you can certainly swap out, you know, DeAndre Jordan, and because he can't really play defense at this stage. He's a big body, he can get some boards, can catch a lob, but you know, he's an old head.
Jared Allen will end up eating some minutes,
and I think Jared Allen's a pretty good defensive player.
He's slow, yeah, he's good.
I think Karras is okay. I think Durant's okay.
Dinwiddie, not so much. But the perimeter defense maybe needs some help, especially when you have Joe Harris out there.
Well, that's what I mean. You look around the rest of the roster, the guys who are likely to get minutes, there just aren't guys who are individually good defenders. Mm-hmm. I fully believe you can be a mediocre on-ball defender, individual defender, and be a really valuable team defender. But I don't think they even have those guys offhand.
I don't know. I mean, none of these teams seem like finished products, right? Even the Sixers, who we get to see tonight, maybe by the time you hear this pod. Like, none of these teams seem finished to me, and I love that because that means more action towards the trade deadline.
Well, you know, before we pull the plug on this perfect 2 hours of basketball brilliance, does the lack of fans help the Nets? Because when I think of Nets games, the ones I've been to, the Nets fan base, seeing them in person makes them seem even less real. Because you know they're people who were rooting for the Knicks, or still root for the Knicks. You know it's people who don't really care that much about basketball. There's no Burrow loyalty to the Nets from Brooklyn in any actual sense. So having them become a real team with no fans except the branding on the floor,
Chef's kiss.
It's so fake that it almost seems real.
I got no fewer than 3 texts last night mocking me from my dear friends, being like, how's it feel to be a Knicks fan now? I'm like, amazing. What are you talking about? This is incredible. I've never hated the Nets. The Knicks are terrible. They're in relegation. They're listening to Mudvayne, man. But, like, it's interesting, right? Because where that dragging comes in is, like, the fan base is different. They assume I care, but most Knicks fans do care quite a bit about this. And there's been a lot of discussion about, like, the war of the boroughs, and are Nets going to take over the basketball culture in New York? And maybe if they win, but of all seasons to do this with no fans in the arena, with questionable but good Basquiat merchandise, like, I don't think the branding has solved its original issues from the Prokhorov days. And Durant is not necessarily like a lovable player, and neither is Kyrie. We both love him, but we both love Kyrie. I love Durant for a different reason, in that he's a A-list troll. But like,
I'm in on KD and Kyrie this year.
Awesome, yeah. They're fun people who are interesting, who make the NBA better off the court and on the court. So I want the Knicks to take over the city because selfishly, I think it'll light a fire under the Knicks wagons, their derrieres. But I do see your point. Of all seasons to have all the stars align, it's this one with an empty arena.
But it's almost better in some ways, where like the Nets can go out, be great, maybe they win a championship, and then people will just kind of start wearing Nets gear without them actually being in an arena, and it'll just be acceptable. Like, oh, right, the Nets. Oh, they're cool now. They're not. The corniness will be gone. It's just going to be, oh, it's Kyrie and KD and a championship. Fucking let's go. Throw that Brooklyn B and that Biggie Smalls jersey on, and like, let's rock. Instead of it being associated with the possessiveness of people being like, I'm there, I'm in the game, I'm courtside. Like, you can actually start fresh in a way that the franchise never did, but it will take like the cleansing of a championship to actually get like they did such a bad job. Instead of coming in and being lousy, they came in and kind of fabricated a bullshit contender. The merch sucks, the color scheme sucks, everything stinks about it. It was marketed.
The arena's very dour. It feels very Star Wars Empire Strikes Back.
It was marketed as like an artisanal hip hop team for like rap dads. It was so lame that like you just need the palate cleanse of like a championship out of nowhere with 2 huge stars who are like the emotional Iversons of their era. Like, okay, these guys are fucking weird. They just want a title? Okay, we're cool. We're cool.
It's like the Wikipedia entry for Brooklyn was what they followed. Should they rebrand it to like a huge bodega? Should Barclays become from head to toe, but every corner bodega with like cats napping on?
Get your chopped cheese here. Get chopped cheese.
Some bacon, egg, and cheese. Bacon constantly cooking throughout the game. The bacon grease everywhere.
Yeah, if you want to get like cotton candy, it gets flown over to you by a pigeon.
Yeah. There's guys playing craps in the back constantly.
CeeLo for sure. I mean, this is Brooklyn. Come on, Ratatouille style vending machines with like pizza rats. Yeah.
Broken ice cream fridges, like out of order. Piles of bags of ice in other fridges. It's awesome. I think
really lean into it. This is Kevin Harlan. Welcome to the Bodega.
Yeah. What would you prefer, the Bodega Brooklyn Nets or the Brooklyn Internets? I mean, maybe you could split it in half. Half of the arena is like the Matrix, and the other half is like the Beatnuts EP.
Intoxicated Demons?
I forget.
Yes, it had the fabulous song Psycho Dwarf.
Easy. I'm sitting right here.
Cookies.
Cookies.